This video is brought to you by PlayAsia. Get 5% off every order via the link below. Hey guys, and welcome back to CG News, a roughly weekly feature where the channel rounds up the latest news on video game regional differences that's not been covered in its own video. I also just want to apologize again for the fewer amount of videos recently. This is something that will definitely be changing very soon, and so please bear with me on this. Anyway, jumping straight in, first up we have a continuation of a story that was covered in last week's video. This being the news that Conception Plus will be having some changes made to the English versions, which toned down a suggestive minigame mechanic. At the time, it wasn't known whether this content change would also be made to the Steam release or just the PS4 version, and it was noted that this wasn't specified on the official blog post announcing the change, unlike the change that will be made to Crystar, which was unveiled at the same time but indicated that the game would be left unaltered on PC. Censored Gaming and others had reached out to Spike Chunsoft about this though, and the publisher has now updated the blog post to indicate that the Steam version of Conception Plus will also not be having this change made. And so this is something that you may wish to keep in mind if deciding between the PS4 and Steam versions of the game. Aside from that, the past week has seen the announcement of the TurboGrafx 16 Mini, and with it some interesting regional differences have been revealed about the console and the games made available for it. Firstly, there will be a different name and design for the console depending on which region you are located in. In the US, the console will be based on the TurboGrafx 16 model, which was the version originally released in the US back in 1989. In Japan, it will be based on the PC Engine model, which is the Japanese original from 1987. And then in Europe, buyers will be getting one called the PC Engine Core Graphic Mini, which is based on an upgraded version of the PC Engine. Aside from this, the games available between regions will largely be the same, but with an interesting twist to this. The English consoles will contain 24 games that are based on the versions originally released in English and so are fully translated. However, the English consoles will also contain an additional 26 completely different games that are based on the Japanese versions. This also includes the Konami classic Snatcher. However, with them being based on the Japanese versions, these additional 24 games will not be translated into English. This is especially a shame for games like Snatcher, which is a very text-heavy graphic adventure game. It's the same deal over in Japan though, with them receiving the same games as the West and having the same games being in English and the same games being in Japanese. There is just one curious exception, that is. One of the Japanese games, the visual novel Tokimeki Memorial, is being changed to the Japanese version of Salamander for the English minis, which is a side-scrolling shooter. It's not known why this change was made, but being a visual novel, the original game would have been much harder to play for people who don't understand Japanese. Next up, there's been some news on the localization of Death Stranding, which fans may be interested in. Creator Hideo Kojima has discussed the localization work over on Twitter and mentioned how he has wrote the game's original script and that this then gets translated to English, and then the English voice actors then slightly modify lines to make them sound more natural and to quote cool. In another tweet, Kojima then mentions that the Japanese version of the game will be using the English lip syncing and that he has to then adjust each of his lines again to try and make sure they fit the English lip animations. With Kojima's fondness of using famous Western actors for his games and his attention to detail, it's not surprising that he is choosing to take this approach. But it's interesting how making sure dialogue fits the lip syncing is normally a big area of localizing games into English, and how here it is happening in a sort of reverse situation. Following that, we have a quick update on PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which has faced some regulation issues around the world, and this has now continued, with it just been announced that the game has now been banned in Jordan. It isn't just PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds though, with Jordan's Telecommunications Regulatory Commission currently in talks about banning other popular battle royale games including Fortnite. The reason given for the bans is vague, but was said to be due to an investigation that concluded that the game has a negative impact for players of all generations. This is likely in response to the game being so popular and the current trend by some of labelling them as addictive, like seen in some recent comments made by the UK's Prince Harry, which then led to Epic Games and EA being questioned by UK Parliament last month over immersive and addictive technologies. Next, we have some news on Leisure Suit Larry Wet Dreams Don't Dry, and some issues the game has run into with the ESRB that has led to the game being slightly toned down worldwide. The game was originally released back in November for PC and then June for Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4. The game was a few days ago, however, suddenly removed from the US eShop and is currently also removed from the US PlayStation Store. The publishers have commented on this and said that it was due to an age rating change by the ESRB and that they were forced to remove the game and change a scene. Censored Gaming has queried the publishers on on this, but they have currently not responded to requests for comment. The game was already rated mature in North America, and from what is being said, it seems to suggest that the game should have been rated adults only. The publishers have said that, aside from re-uploading the game on US storefronts, a worldwide patch is being made to change the content for all regions. They have also said that the content affected is one of the game's Instacrap scenes, which is an in-game parody of Instagram. In the game are short cutscenes showing the app and suggestive acts from Larry and the characters he hooks up with, and it was one of these scenes that has been changed. And then finally we have some updates from PlayAsia and some games releasing with full English translations but aren't officially releasing over here in the West. Both Is It Wrong to Try and Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon Infinite Combat and SD Gundam G Generation Crash Race will be releasing in the Asia region with full English language support, and neither have been said to be coming overseas, meaning this is the only way to play the games in English. You can check out the link in the description to find more details, with both games being available for both PS4 and Nintendo Switch. Aside from that, there's also a physical Asian English release of Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger IX that you may be interested in. Whilst this one is being released in the West, it is currently at least digital only, and so again you may be interested in checking out the link in the description if a physical English release is something you are interested in. As always, please let us know your thoughts in the comments below and consider subscribing to see more videos on how media is changed around the world. Until next time, thank you for watching.